The Steven Avery case continues to grab headlines across the country. People magazine's latest issue has Steven Avery on the front cover. It tells the tragic irony about Teresa Halbach, also on the cover, wanting to quit her job at Auto Trader just weeks before her fateful visit to the Avery salvage yard. You may have also seen the coverage of the Avery case on CBS this morning and Dr. Phil just this afternoon. I'm joined in studio now by Alex Flynn, a criminal defense attorney, to talk about the case. Alex, welcome. Very narrow window with which Steven Avery could pursue an appeal. We haven't heard from his defense attorney yet, his new attorney, what they plan to do. What do you think their chances?
I think the chances of him being granted an appeal are remote. And I'll tell you why. At this late phase, typically a criminal defendant once convicted has an absolute right to appeal once. And that's already been done and denied. Now we're here all these years later. It's a very, very difficult standard, very high standard. It has to be new evidence or something procedurally defective with the prosecution itself that would warrant what's known as a habeas corpus. That is, we can bring him into a federal court and have a federal judge look at the denial of his constitutional rights in that. In terms of the new evidence, ironically, because his defense lawyers did such a good job, they left no stone unturned. They examined every angle of that evidence at the trial. There's not a lot new to go after here. All the blood's been looked at, all the testing has been done, all the experts have weighed in. There's no new grand home run evidence that can come in. I understand they're looking at juror misconduct, and that could be a grounds. That's getting more to the procedure, the process, the due process that he should have been afforded.
But juries always have a strong personality that seems to influence the other jurors. That's not grounds for appeal. Doesn't it have to be pressure from outside the deliberation room?
There's no question, except one can't threaten another one. One can't threaten harm to another one to get a vote. But here's the bigger obstacle. Legally, the inquiry into how the jury deliberated and what it did and what it said is very limited. The law puts up tremendous walls and blocks into inquiring into what was said and done back in that jury room because they don't want juries second guessed. They don't want jurors feeling, I'm going to get examined by some lawyer down the road if I rule this way or that way. So there's a legal roadblock into getting back and seeing what they did, and there's no outside influence that we know of. But on the other hand, if there's one in there, if there's a foreman who's a bullying another juror, yeah, that's grounds to overturn the conviction.
What in the documentary that you think is most stunning?
By far, well, two things. By far the most troubling is that this was a law enforcement agency in a small town subject to a $36 million lawsuit, and they're investigating. It was just an incontrovertible conflict of interest. They should not have investigated this. In fact, I think even though they could legally, statutorily investigate it, it might rise to the level of a due process violation because they could not bring that degree of objectivity and dispassionate inquiry that is necessary into something like this. There were reputations, maybe careers at stake, and they had every incentive in the world to spin things at the least, if not plant things, to get that conviction.
This has gone through so many appeals courts already. Many people who have seen the documentary or learn a little bit about these discrepancies in the investigation, for lack of a better term, because nothing's been proven in terms of law enforcement action. And everybody goes, wow, I would give him a new trial based on that. Well, why aren't the judges on these appeals courts saying that?
Well, look, there's troubling evidence here. Her bones, her body was found on the property. Her car was found on the property. There were phone calls made to have her come out there. Some allegedly where he tried to keep himself anonymous. There's troubling evidence
Nobody's
here.
declaring Steven Avery innocent. I just hear people saying because of those discrepancies, he should get a new trial. I mean, what possibly could be the influence? You don't think politics is at work with the appeals court?
I think it is a play. Absolutely. I think there is a political component. It is very difficult for any elected judge to look at a conviction of a murderer like this and say, I'm going to overturn it.
This is a terrible black eye for the Wisconsin justice system.
But I'm not saying that's what's occurring. I think we'd be naive to think that is not a factor at play here. There's also very strong evidence here. Her bones buried there. Her car is there. They're reaching out to her. She's last seen there. There's compelling evidence. That Dassey conviction is another very, very troubling.
Well, we're going to have to save that for another day.
Oh, my goodness,
Will you
yeah.
come back and talk with us?
I
Because I have
would-
a feeling this isn't going away.
I'd be delighted to,
Alex
yes.
Flynn, thank you so much. I'll be posting more of this interview once I leave the set on our website, cbs58.com. And as we talk about this, just a reminder here that the main person we should focus on is Teresa Halbach, who at 25 lost her life in a horrible way. And we never want to forget the victim in all this discussion about the accused. Alex Flynn, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bill?
Very interesting.